Good Saturday evening, everyone. It's your News 13 homeschool help moment for the evening. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Melissa Thomas. Today we're going to be discussing some tools forecasters use to help you remain weather aware. Some of these have more room for error and are still being refined by researchers and atmospheric scientists out there. And some of these are pretty darn precise with high confidence that you want to pay attention to if you ever hear one being talked about on your local news station, on the radio, warnings on your apps. There's high confidence and you can trust them, and you need to take cover when you hear them or see them. So I'm sure you're like, what is she talking about? So let's get right into it. Staying weather aware. There's three big types of forecasting in the future. How would you say that? I guess each one has its own name. So these tools have their own name, and I'll explain what each one means to you and what it means for the weather, upcoming weather, and what the atmosphere is going to look like for you in the upcoming timelines associated with each one. So the first one are outlooks. You have long-term outlooks and short-term outlooks. The next tool is watches. Watches are they could be hit and miss of whether you see what that watch is for. And we'll get into a little bit more detail when we're actually observing a watch and talking about what watches are. The last one, this is the one that if you hear it, see it, read it, and you are in the path of it, a warning has high confidence. Whatever it's warning you of, it's on its way to you. You should take shelter by whatever means of protecting your safety and property that's required of a warning. So, outlooks. We are going to look at long-term outlooks first, and these ones are in their early stages of refining. There's lots of room for error for them. Atmospheric scientists are continuously studying weather equations and the dynamics of the atmosphere to get a better handle on being able to predict the weather a couple months out. So right now, this is more of an experimental outlook, and whether the conditions that it's predicting come to fruition or not is there's a little bit less confident in your long-term outlooks than we would have for, say, in a watch. Using, for example, I have the NOAA's Climate Prediction Center's 3-month outlook for your rain, your precipitation, and your temperatures. So for this one, this is the most recent one. So this is actually what the prediction for the month of April, May, and June are currently. In the bottom left of this graphic, you can see the NOAA symbol. Underneath it, you can see the title of the graph you're looking at, so the 3-month outlook, your precipitation probabilities, the line under that, and then you can see that it's valid for AMJ, April, May, June 2020. And then they tell you when they made this, which was also considered something called initialization. It means this outlook was initialized on the 19th of March 2020. So at that time, they used conditions in the atmosphere currently to plug into these equations and then run those equations 3 months out to see what it's telling them will likely happen across this 3-month period as far as precipitation goes. And since we're continually refining those, they are continually refining those equations. I am not. But since they are continually refining those equations, there's a lot of room for error, because the farther out in the timeline you get from the beginning of your equation, the more spread, the more away from precise answer you're going to get. So imagine like we're at the beginning of the equation right here, and we're pretty precise, and then we run it out for 3 months. The further away we get from those initial conditions, the farther away from precise we get, because if that equation says right about here, halfway through our 3-month marker, we're projecting that the conditions will be this warm or have this type of atmospheric effect, which would produce this much rain. But let's say 2 months from now that the atmosphere actually does not have that. It did something else in reality. So that means it could be doing something completely different than what that equation's projecting, because the equation is not considering the different atmospheric dynamics that could be occurring halfway through that original processing of a 3-month outlook. So lots of error involved with these. Right now, it's since initialization on March 19th, 2020, it is projecting a above normal precipitation for the next 3 months. And you can see that in the bottom right-hand corner. If I said left hand, I hope I said left hand earlier for the title of the graph. I'm a little dyslexic, so I like to switch those up. That title is on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side of the precipitation graph, you can see what each of the shading means. So EC means equal, that's that first line. Chances for A means above, N means normal, and B means below. So it's pretty self-explanatory, pairing those colors to the graph so you can see the southeast has a slightly above normal projection for some rainfall. We're in the lighter green, so if you look at that little bar in the right-hand corner, that's your legend to help you see what percentage is associated with each color. We have 33%, so we have a 33 to 40% chance we're in that little interval for higher than normal rainfall. And then where the actual A is the darkest green, or the darker green, not the darkest. Then I would say, what does that look like? 60 to 70% if you correlate it to the, or compare it to the legend. What's 60? Nah, that's 50 to 60% chance for above normal rainfall for that area of the United States. And then in the West, they're looking at drier than normal conditions. And then you have that strip of white, which means they're going to average about what they may average, what they typically do each year. Very similar setup for your temperature graph. I don't need to re-explain any of the markers on there, but I put it up there just so you can see what the Climate Prediction Center is currently projecting for our temperatures throughout the month of April, May, and June. So I'm sure with the way spring has started as warm as it has, it comes as no surprise that April, May, and June are projected to be above normal temperatures. So we will have a warmer than average next few 3 months if this Climate Prediction Center's model pans out and that comes to fruition. Cool, huh? That's probably going to be the most difficult one to explain because I wanted to dive into why there's so much room for error when it comes to long-term outlooks and why we don't rely too very heavily on them. They're really cool to look at, and one day down the road, when these researchers and atmospheric scientists have further refined the equations, we get a better handle on what's going on more smaller scale dynamics in the atmosphere so that we can be more accurate in these equations. We may, forecasters, rely more on these long-term outlooks and be able to trust that, hey, 3 months from now, we're going to be warmer than average. And yeah, that's probably what's going to happen because at that time, decades from now, if that, maybe sooner, but maybe decades from now, our equations are that strong and we are that confident in them and our understanding of the atmosphere to say, yeah, 3 months out, we can pretty much bet it's going to be warmer than average. Right now, lots of room for error. So we're going to stay in the outlook territory, but now we're going to talk about some outlooks that span across a shorter timeline and we have more confidence in them. There is room for error for these, but they're really good to rely on if you want to consider what your next few days leading into a week or weekend, how weather aware and prepared you want to be. These are outlooks that are produced by the Storm Prediction Center, and they span from 1 day, 2 day outlook, 3 day outlook, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7, which if you visit the site, Storm Prediction Center's website, and you look at these outlook days, day 1, 2, and 3 get a solid graphic with a discussion. 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's like a little video that you run through it, and there's a discussion with it. And for the most part, days 4, 5, 6, and 7 are too far out to really have too much confidence in. But every now and then, with our models, the equations that are working those models, and what we understand with the atmosphere, every now and then, there can be kind of a higher than usual confidence in what's going to happen on day 5 and 6. And if there's enough ingredients in the atmosphere and all of our weather models are saying, hey, we all think this is going to happen, to add a personality to the weather model. They agree, there's high confidence. That'll raise an eyebrow for forecasters on day 5 or 6 or 7, and they'll say, you know what, hey, this is a little far out to say this will for sure happen, but it's enough to, we have enough confidence to go ahead and put down an outlook for this day and monitor it the closer we get to it. So with a Storm Prediction Center, your outlooks, I'm using the outlooks we had last weekend for the severe weather event we were monitoring over the weekend moving into Tuesday and Wednesday. My head is in front of the Tuesday marker, but don't worry, I was telling my viewers that it was Tuesday we were looking at. Trust me. And there's a color scheme, like most graphs that you'll look at with weather and temperature and probabilities and data. And that scheme is, the definition of each color is listed on the graph. The really light green being a general, which means there's likelihood for some thunderstorms. Marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. It's very rare to see purple in a high. We see them a couple times a year, but when you see high, everybody's scrambling to get prepared for that severe weather event. And then it goes down from there. Moderate, enhanced, slight, and marginal. For Tuesday, when I was broadcasting the forecast on Sunday, we had a slight chance for severe weather on the Panhandle, and then just along the coastline it was down to marginal. And marginal and slight, you could say marginal represents an isolated chance for severe thunderstorms. Slight is a scattered chance for, so a little bit more than isolated chance for severe thunderstorms, with the possibility of a few of those being intense and maybe dropping tornadoes. And in each category that you get familiar with, it'll even give you probabilities and percentages of how likely each threat might occur. So damaging winds, tornadoes, hail, all kinds of breakdowns that go along with these outlooks. So outlooks are good for a few days out. And day 1 and 2 and 3. 3 you kind of want to raise an eyebrow at. I'm going to stay tuned over the next couple of days to see what this event pans out. Maybe some of the ingredients that has us worried for day 3 calms down a little bit moving into day 3, and then day 3 is not a big deal. Day 1 and 2, there's more confidence in that outlook. So if you have day 1 and 2 outlooks for severe weather, then you want to start considering your plans for that day. Are those plans, can you operate around severe weather if it comes to fruition? Do you have ways to get your weather alerts? Maybe you have a baseball game and you're thinking, we may need to cancel that baseball game because severe weather we're under a slight chance for severe weather, which at the very least means we got some rainfall and unsettled weather coming our way. So you're thinking about your schedule now. You're thinking about the forecast. You're remaining weather aware a couple days out. And then you're monitoring and you're staying tuned in the days leading up to day 1, day 2, day 3 to see if anything changes, because day 2 may have an outlook that looks hairy, and then over the next 24 hours those conditions lighten up a little bit and you can plan accordingly. Okay, I won't cancel that baseball game, or I will consider my route to work. I won't take the back roads that might flood, or I'll take the city, etc., etc. You plan accordingly leading up to the day of that outlook is projecting and what has changed since seeing the original outlook and the day of your schedule. The next one we're going to look at is watches. And what I'm going to use is I actually am using live radar across the nation. And since we're all stuck in our homes, we're going to go across the nation. And right now, they're actually experiencing some winter storm watches. We don't really get those too much here, but they are under a winter storm watch. And I circled where that shading is. So on sometimes, depending on what platform you're looking at, you can see watches done in boxes, or in this platform, you can see a watch is done by shading. So I've circled the shading. Winter storm watch that expires on 7 p.m. Tuesday is in that blue shading. Winter storms have a little bit longer of a lifespan, so their watch goes through Tuesday at 7 p.m. Watches in the southeast, you might see more of a severe thunderstorm watch, which may last an entire day. You may see a tornado watch, which may last half a day, a couple of hours. And that's because those weather events occur faster. So those watches are going to have a smaller interval. And watches does not guarantee you will see that weather. So the community members east of Palmdale, Los Angeles, Huntington Beach in California, they may or may not see winter storms. Their forecast is just putting a watch down and saying, hey, throughout the next 2 days, have a way to get warnings in case this watch does develop into a warning. But it's not a guarantee that all those community members are going to see a winter storm. And it's the same thing for the Southeast when you have a severe thunderstorm watch that might last all day. It's not a guarantee you're going to see a severe thunderstorm. And there is a likelihood that in that big box of a severe thunderstorm watch, you might not see it, but your neighbor 2 hours up the road in a community may actually have a severe thunderstorm roll over them. So you don't see this severe weather come to fruition over your house does not mean that everyone in that box had the same thing happen. They may have had a severe thunderstorm come over their house, and because they were remaining weather aware, taking that watch seriously, when it did mutate into a warning, they were prepared to take cover, take shelter, and stay safe. They didn't take it any less seriously just because they may not see that severe thunderstorm because they didn't see it last time, but maybe you saw it last time. You were in that box of a severe thunderstorm watch, and that severe thunderstorm did end up developing over your community. You had to take cover. They escaped the severe thunderstorm. Or tornado. And speaking of lifespans, the tornado watches, when they mutate, tornadoes are even shorter of a lifespan. So that watch may be the entire morning, a couple hours, even a whole day, depending on the ingredients in the atmosphere. If forecasters are super confident that, hey, sometime today in this area, there's likely the possibility a tornado will drop with one of these severe thunderstorms. So you have an all-day tornado watch. It's not a guarantee everyone will see a tornado. Actually, the percentages that you will see a tornado are really small. But because it's not zero, and you might see that tornado, that watch is helping you stay prepared, you and your family, so that if that small percentage does actually come to fruition for you, you're safe and you can protect your life and the life of your family. That's what watches are for. And so even if you don't experience that severe thunderstorm, or for the most part you don't experience that tornado, doesn't mean you should take watches any less serious each time one is issued during a weather event. The next one, now things are getting hairier. You've been in a watch all day, and you've got your weather warnings available. You have your cell phones turned up with your apps that'll send you warnings. Maybe you have News Channel 13 playing all morning in case they need to cut in for a tornado warning. You have a way, you've been keeping a way to remain weather aware for any changes in that watch all day. And then it happens. That watch, boom, becomes a warning. Right now, in California, they have a winter storm warning that expires tomorrow morning, or Monday morning, sorry. Tomorrow or Monday morning at 7 a.m. So once again, winter storms, longer lifespan, so their warning is going to expire. And I didn't circle the shading on this one because it's a little more obvious, the pink shading that these communities eastward of Chico, Yuba City, Sacramento, California, Reno, they're likely going to, they have a warning. So they have a winter storm that is approaching their communities, and they will hopefully be making preparations to ride out that storm, take precautions, shelter. Most of us are already sheltered because of the virus, so hopefully that just means they're picking out what movies they want to watch while a winter storm rolls over, and they're safely sheltered at home. And a warning is a guarantee that it's on its way. So they are under a warning for a winter storm through tomorrow morning when it expires. In the Southeast, we have short, like we spoke about with watches, shorter timeline warnings, and they're your severe thunderstorm warning. When your watch that you had all day turns into a severe thunderstorm warning, you might have a couple hours to prepare for that thunderstorm. You might be in Bluntstown, and there's a severe thunderstorm box over a good portion of the Panhandle. Let's say it was a line of storms like we had last weekend, and that whole line of storms, or last Tuesday, and the whole line of storms is severe warned, and it's moving through Bay County or like the eastern portion of Walton County, but you're in that severe thunderstorm warning. It's on its way to you, and there's high confidence that it's going to roll over your community. You have a couple hours to prepare. Other cases, with faster moving storms that develop, you may only have an hour to prepare for a severe thunderstorm, 30 minutes to prepare for a severe thunderstorm. And when you see that warning, you want to go ahead and take shelter, get indoors, get off the roads, change, maybe call your boss and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and wait to get on the roads till after the severe thunderstorm warning has passed because it is rolling right over Highway 231 and I have to use 231 to get to work. So I'm going to wait till this passes. So you have that preparation time to plan accordingly for severe thunderstorms, warnings, and to take cover. Tornado warnings, when you get one of those, you can have anywhere from 30 minutes, a few minutes, to seconds to take cover for a tornado warning. And when you see a tornado warning, that means, and you were in the box, your community is in the box of that tornado warning, you don't have that much time to take cover, which is why the outlooks a few days out, the watches you may have had all day, that's there to help you have a plan set so that when that tornado warning does ring out and you're in that box, you're not last minute trying to make a plan, figure out where's the safest part of your house, what do I need to do to protect myself. You've been thinking about this for a few days because you remained weather aware, you were watching that outlook, you were staying tuned, you were checking in, you knew there was a watch, you had your warnings available. Boom, there's the warning, I got 30 minutes, I'm going to calmly get to my place of shelter. Boom, there's that warning, I have minutes. Well, I'm still prepared, I'm going to slide real quick over to that shelter. Sometimes you only have seconds, and hopefully throughout a severe weather event, when it comes to seconds, you are near a place of safety and you can slide into it immediately. And that's what the warnings are there for, is this is happening, it's coming right near towards you, take shelter. Let's see, what else do I want to touch on? No, I had a good point. We were talking about warnings and I tangented, my brain tangented. Come on, lasso that idea back up. It was in regards to warnings, timelines, remaining weather aware, only having a short amount of time. Oh no, it's left me. It has escaped me. So if it does come back to me, I'll update my status with the note that I wanted to touch on as far as the outlooks, watches, and warnings. Okay. But that's our little breakdown of tools the forecasting community uses to help you remain weather aware and what we mean by remaining weather aware. And sorry, I'm being stubborn trying to remember it. I don't think it's going to come to me in time though. So make sure you have the News 13 Storm Track 13 weather app downloaded. So when you're moving into a severe weather event that is likely due to an outlook, you can check our forecasts that we post in that app daily. Even if you miss the newscast moving into it, you can check that app and the entire 3-minute hit of a weather forecast each meteorologist on shift posts after that weather hit. You can check each day, okay, has anything changed? Is that outlook still valid? Are we still concerned about that day we're moving into? And then make sure your settings are set to where it sounds, vibrates, text notifications that you are under a watch, you're under a warning. That way, when the outlook does come to fruition, nothing changes, the conditions are still hairy, and that watch and that warning drops, you are prepared to take care of yourself and your family and to protect your life. So these are all very important tools to keep you weather aware. So whenever we say weather aware, that's what we mean to be doing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you stay safe, remain weather aware, remain healthy, and until the next homeschool help, and this is not just homeschool help, this is for everybody to understand, but until the next homeschool moment when we will dive into something cool tomorrow, I hope you guys stay safe and healthy.